Brilliant. Hello, and welcome to the latest Cybersecurity Insider Session. This time we're running through a practical guide to preparing for Mythos. For those of you who don't know, Mythos is Claude's latest model. It's caused quite a stir. It's been pulled by the US government a couple of times due to its potential impact on the market. It's been released to the UK government. It's been released to some of the larger UK financial services sectors so that they can start to make sure that they can defend themselves were Mythos to ever get in the wrong hands and be utilized for nefarious purposes. So as much as we're talking about Mythos here, it's generally AI in general. It's more and more being used within the AI sector and the cybersecurity sector. And we're seeing more and more threats. We're seeing more and more attacks based on cybersecurity AIs. So AIs attack 3 times faster than humans. 91% of breaches are starting with phishing, and we'll touch on why that's relevant to artificial intelligence in a minute. The average UK breach cost £3.4 million in 2025, so they're becoming more and more costly as time goes by. And we're seeing a 200% increase year on year in the number of AI-powered attacks. So today, we've got Sassy from Microsoft on with us. So hopefully you all know me. I'm Owen. I'm the CTO at BDR Group. I've been here for 15 years, started IT at BDR. And if you ever want to know how not to do things, I can tell you all of the worst ways to grow an MSP. I can also tell you some of the ways which worked as well. But Sassy, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Owen. Hi, everyone. I'm Sassy, Partner Solution Architect for Security at Microsoft. My focus in my role is on helping partners move from product knowledge to outcomes, help them design, build, and scale security solutions, shaping security architecture, and supporting go-to-market. So basically, I help understanding what are the risks, optimize the security architecture, and then be ready in case of any attacks or anything like that. Thank you very much. Over to you,
Thanks.
Owen. Thank you.
Thanks, Sassy. All right, so Sassy's going to come back in later on once I've talked through some of the main slides and go through a Q&A. If you want to post your Q&As all the way through, any questions you have, line them up and we'll get to them in that Q&A session. I've got some questions myself for Sassy that I'll run through if we don't get any questions from yourselves. So what we're going to cover today is understanding Mythos, what makes this new class of AI system different, why we're having a whole webinar based around this conversation, what the main attack vectors are to do with AI, what Microsoft's kind of security AI perspective is, a 10-step framework that can make sure that you are prepared and that you can start implementing as soon as this webinar is complete. We'll talk a bit around governance and compliance and why that's so applicable in this day and age and why it's probably best to be aligned to one of these frameworks. And then we'll go through the live Q&A with Sassy. Any questions for me, feel free as well. And we'll go through that as well. So what is Mythos? Mythos is a more powerful artificial intelligence than has been released in prior iterations. It has a higher contextual awareness, so it's got more capability to pull multiple disparate sources and contextualize them into something meaningful, something useful. It runs at massive scale, so it can run many concurrent attack threads without any kind of degradation in its intelligence on each one of those attack threads. It's naturally language usable, so it can actually do emails, voice, video, and all the same time be using an SSH prompt to actually be trying to get in the back door of your systems. It can be adaptive. It actually will react in real time to any blocks against it or any potential vulnerabilities that it discovers and actually start to execute autonomously attacks against infrastructure. Because it's an AI, not a human. Its persistence is at a different level. Hackers get bored, hackers move on to the next target. If Mythos or any other AI is being utilized against your business, it will sit there knocking at the door until it finds a hole. So as soon as a security vulnerability is released to do with your firewall or to do with your VPN connection or your ZTNA connection or however you get into your infrastructure, because it's permanently knocking, it's going to get straight through into your infrastructure as soon as it knows a vulnerability exists. So it can operate across that entire life cycle, across that entire kill chain. So the AI threat landscape. So we touched on that the majority of attacks actually get through via phishing. And why is that relevant to AI? Because hyper-personalized phishing is becoming more and more of a thing, where AIs are being sent out to actually concatenate a lot of information to do with specific individuals, to do with specific companies. So when an AI is targeting your organization, it's going to look up, right, who's the CEO, who's the chairman, who's the head of finance, look up their LinkedIn post, look up their Facebook, look up all of the information it can collate about them and start targeting them based on all of that information. So if your CEO recently posted that he's gone skiing out in the Austrian Alps, maybe it'll talk to him about having met him on a ski lift. Hi, Dave, I met you on the ski lift. Heads up, if you want to click this link, this is an article all about the good work that we're doing. I know that you wanted to interact with us about that. Or here's the charity that you can donate to. Something that's actually personalized to his experience and potentially could be legitimate. So they're getting better at looking as though they're legitimate actors. You've got the autonomous vulnerability exploitation that we touched on earlier. As soon as a vulnerability is detected, they can latch onto it and start attacking all the people in the database that they know have those particular firewalls, those particular pieces of software exposed to the internet, and start breaking down those barriers. But they're also doing it internally. They're using their own intelligence to find these vulnerabilities. And Mythos was actually quite famous for the fact that it found a vulnerability in the Linux kernel, which had existed for over 15 years. It had passed through over 5 million penetration tests and never been discovered. The advent of Mythos got pointed at the Linux kernel and instantly found that vulnerability. So it's going to be very good at finding even those vulnerabilities which haven't been publicly exposed so far. So with the deepfake social engineering, it's a bit like that hyper-personalized phishing. We're going to see more and more people emulating potentially large figures within your organization and setting up dummy secondary accounts to exploit some of your customers or try some social manipulation attacks. We've got adaptive AI ransomware that is targeting crown jewels, that's figuring out ways of evading the current security systems and yet still performing those old egress of the data and encryption of the data to do the double threat ransomware attacks, where they can both ransom you over releasing your data, and they can also do the threat of releasing those files back to you. You're seeing more and more supply chain attacks these days. So we're seeing more and more third-party vendors getting hit, which then impacts the providers that they provide services for. Marks and Spencer, Jaguar Land Rover, those are some of the high-profile cases for this, but everybody's exposed to this. And how many people on this webinar are actually auditing their third-party suppliers on how good or bad their security controls are? Because really, if they've got any form of interaction with your systems, you need to make sure that they're secure, because otherwise they could be the one breaching your systems. And in the future, we've got those quantum-ready threats. So really, what we've got is that hyper-personalized phishing that we talked about, that 91% of those breaches are starting with this. Mythos can simultaneously generate thousands of bespoke messages per employee. So the scale of these attacks can be so much more than they historically can be. You've got that autonomous vulnerability exploitation, that they are perpetually scanning for any of those vulnerabilities. If it can create a vulnerability itself, it will. If somebody else has created a vulnerability, it'll use their exploit. We're seeing more and more of that deepfake social engineering, where they're using WhatsApp, they're using Teams, they're using all sorts of attack vectors to actually mimic human interaction. You've got the adaptive ransomware we talked about, the supply chain infiltration. And from a quantum ready threat, this is kind of the next generation that we're going to be seeing, and especially AI being overlaid on top of this quantum threat is quite scary, because once quantum computing becomes ready, a lot of the security mechanisms we have in place, things like SSL certificates and all of the encryption layers we have to prevent attacks suddenly become null and void because quantum level decryption is much more powerful than we currently have in place. And here's a quote from myself: that the question is no longer whether AI will be used against your organization, it's whether you'll be prepared when it is. So where are we? Everyone will have talked to you about patch management. You should already have a patch management schedule in place. You'd already be patching all of your critical assets, and you should be making sure that there's no high-level CVEs against your infrastructure. That's one of the most critical things you can do from day dot, because as soon as somebody gets inside your infrastructure, or if somebody's knocking on the door of the outside of your infrastructure, if you haven't patched your firewalls, you haven't patched your external facing systems, they will be compromised very quickly. Do you have any of those supply chain blind spots? Are you auditing your supply chain? How good or bad are they? Is it a man in a dog in a shed and he doesn't even know what cybersecurity means, but you've actually given him full access into your systems? Well, you know where their attack vector is going to come from. Do you still have employees within your organization who refuse to use their personal mobile phones for multi-factor authentication? Are you still using SMS-based authentication? In that case, again, unfortunately, you're very, very open, in spite of having multi-factor authentication in place, to being attacked and to actually the attack vector getting through. If you've got no written, practiced incident response plan, again, what will you do when the worst occurs? Do you know what you need to do? Do you know which organizations you need to contact? When you're going to reach out to your insurance firm? Do you need to engage with digital forensics? When do you contact the police? If you're a large organization, what does your marketing plan? How do you release this to the press? How do you talk about what's going on within your organization? You've got the training gaps. Are you training your internal employees? On the last webinar, we talked about cyber insurance and how there are challenges around cyber insurance where they'll have written in there that you have to show and evidence that all of your employees have had cyber awareness training within the last 12 months. So make sure that you are performing those cyber awareness training courses within your organization, but B, you're evidencing those so that when you do get asked for it, you can bring it to the forefront pretty quickly. Do you have a board level gap? Is the board aware of what's going in within your organization, or are they completely removed and actually purely focused on the growth or the day-to-day running of the operation? Because that incident response plan generally involves board members, but a lot of the board members are unaware of this. So we always recommend doing tabletop exercises of your business continuity plans and your cyber incident response plans to make sure that you know what to do in the event of a cyber incident or a business continuity incident. So our main 10 steps to prepare your business are: perform a comprehensive risk assessment, understand where the risks lie within your business. Do you have third-party integrations? Do you have patch management in place? And have that gap analysis ready and present it to the board so that they know what's happening. Do you have a zero trust architecture in place? Are you making sure that the minimum amount of permission is being granted to each user and device? And actually, you're locking down the applications and data to the point that if a single user gets breached, it won't spread across all of your systems. Are you using phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication, such as FIDO2 or Microsoft passkeys? Those are good ways to eliminate those challenges. Do you have the automated patch management in place? Are you patching all of your operating systems? Are you patching all of your third-party applications? Are you making sure that you're taking care of that side of things? Have you got AI-aware security training in place? Not just cybersecurity training, but training around the social side of AI. The fact that so many bots out there, so many social media accounts are being run by artificial intelligences rather than human beings. Are your defenses AI powered, or are they kind of traditional antivirus? More and more, we need to be in a world where you've got true AI detection happening within your organization. Because as soon as it's in, it's got the infinite patience, as opposed to the human, which might accidentally trigger an alarm. AIs are very good at avoiding those alarms. So if you've got a SIEM engine and endpoint detection and response tools that have the capability to detect these things, you're actually going to be able to see when they're on your systems. Make sure that you're securing your supply chain. We always recommend that you run red team exercises against your infrastructure. So we always prefer that you have pretend attacks performed against your infrastructure, and we've got many tools that can do these, as well as humans that can do those red team exercises. Make sure you've got that incident response plan in place. Make sure that you're testing it as well and running those tabletop exercises. Regulatory compliance is getting more and more enforced across the whole of Europe and the UK especially. Cyber Essentials is pretty much a baseline. But these aren't bad things. These are what good looks like. So I would treat the frameworks as the floor, not the ceiling. Treat them as the minimum level to entry to have a cyber secure company, and then work your way from there. So building your AI ready security stack, really you should have an endpoint detection response in place, something like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. You should have identity and access management in place, something like Entra ID takes care of that side of things. Do you have a full BCDR plan in place? So in this case, if you're in Azure, you can use Azure Backup or Site Recovery to perform those operations. Do you have SIEM? So is all the telemetry from all of those endpoints being filtered into a single place that you can check over? Our recommendation would be Microsoft Sentinel in that case. You've got the email and communication security. So again, it's built into an awful lot of your Microsoft 365 plans. Are you using them to the fullest that you possibly could be? Because Microsoft Defender for 365 takes care of a lot of this. And are you using AI Security Copilot? Because that's one of the most enlightening things that you can do to your infrastructure. So what's the board level responsibility on all of this? Well, really, ultimately, it's the board's decision what cyber risk they've accepted, what cyber security they've put in place. As much as the people lower down the food chain are going to be heavily involved in these decisions and trying to advocate change, ultimately, it's the board's responsibility to make sure that their company is secure. So they need to make sure that at a bare minimum, they have Cyber Essentials in place. If possible, that they're aligning against NIST 2, as we see potentially a UK version of this being rolled out quite soon. GDPR has been around for nearly a decade now, and yet still it's estimated that 55% of organizations are not GDPR compliant. There have been a massive amount of fines around this. Make sure that your company understands what GDPR is, what impact it has on its organization, and that you are protecting the data the way which you should. Make sure that you're doing reporting into the board and they understand what's going on. If there is a major challenge, highlight it to them. Tell them the risk that's going on. The fact that your FortiGate or your firewall is 3 years out of date and actually is not getting those updates, it's not acceptable anymore, and they really can't avoid that spend. Our key takeaways really are AI threats are not a future concern, they're here today. We're seeing attacks based on AI, and we're seeing them become more and more prevalent. Your insurance does not replace your readiness. You may have cyber insurance in place, but actually the disruption to your organization and the cost it will cause your reputation is probably irreplaceable. We recommend fighting AI with AI, right? The only thing that moves at the speed of AI is an artificial intelligence, unfortunately. So start having AI cybersecurity systems in place. Make sure that you are compliant as a bare minimum and not treating it as the ceiling to try and achieve. And act today. Act today because you haven't had that cyber attack yet. Because if you don't act today, you might be the next victim tomorrow. So that's our main points in a nutshell, at which point I'll bring Sassy back in. So far, I haven't seen any Q&A. Let me just check through. No, we haven't had any Q&A, so I'll move on to some of my my questions once Sassy's gone through his initial point of view on what we just discussed.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you.
Yes, so absolutely yes. So I would say the risk is real. It's there. So the time is ticking. We really need to get the infrastructure secured, make sure to use all the available tools. So when it's come to identity, if we talk about the Microsoft, for example, zero trust assessment, all those, the zero trust assessment, the pillars. So make sure identity is protected, it's visible. When it's come to cloud applications, devices, infrastructure, networking, everything in place, fine-tuned and ready, basically.
Okay, fantastic. Right, so let's move on to the Q&A. So first question, Microsoft processes over 65 trillion signals a day across your global customer base. What patterns are you seeing right now in terms of AI-powered attacks? Are the threats in the white paper something you're still observing in the wild, or are we seeing this as an emerging threat?
Okay, so from Microsoft's perspective, AI-enabled threats are no longer theoretical, but they are not all equally mature. And the Microsoft latest public reporting now references 78 trillion security signals per day, so up from 65 trillion, right? And more than 600 million cybercriminal and nation-state attacks every day across ransomware, phishing, and identity attacks. What we are seeing most clearly in the wild is AI being used as an accelerator. Better written phishing, fake personas, identity fabrication, and fast infrastructure setup, right? So it is happening, yes. Microsoft Threat Intelligence has observed threat actors using generative AI to draft phishing, translate content, summarize stolen data, generate debug malware, scripts, infrastructure. So my answer would be the broad threat pattern is very real today. The more advanced, fully autonomous attack scenario is still emerging, but the practical risk is already here because AI lowers the barrier, right? Increases speed, improves social engineering quality, and helps attackers scale campaigns that previously require more time and specialist skills, I would say. So, yes.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting to know. That's a drastic increase, 65 trillion to 74 trillion. I can't even count that high. Look, AI can compress the entire kill chain from reconnaissance to exfiltration into hours. Does Microsoft's threat intelligence confirm that timeline, and which phase of the attack chain is proving hardest to defend against, would you say?
Okay, so we say so I would be careful not to validate specific cars timeline universally because the speed of an attack depends on the target, the controls in place, the attacker's access, and the maturity of monitoring and response as well, right? So what Microsoft does see is that AI can reduce friction across multiple stages of the attack life cycle, of course, reconnaissance, social engineering, malware development, post-compromise analysis, most of all, yes. The hardest phase to defend against is often not the malware stage, it is identity-led initial access and post-authentication abuse. That's the most important. If an attacker gets a valid account, token, session, or auth consent, they can look like a legitimate users. Microsoft Digital Defense Report highlights that password-based attacks make up more than 99 of the 600 million daily identity attacks. So which is why identity protection, phishing resistant MFA, conditional access, device compliance, and session controls are so important. So we are talking about the first pillar, right? So I would say Microsoft confirms the acceleration trend, absolutely yes, but security teams should focus less on the exact number of hours and more on whether the controls can detect and disrupt identity compromise, lateral movement, data access quickly enough.
Okay, fascinating. That's interesting. So there's been a lot of noise about AI threats. In your experience working with UK organizations, what's the single most underestimated risk right now that they're facing?
Yeah, so what I've seen many times, the most underestimated risk is still identity compromise, right? Combined with social engineering. So we talk about this AI makes phishing, wishing, impersonation, fake business communication more convincing, but the underlying breach path is often familiar, right? A user is tricked, credential or token are stolen, and the attacker uses legitimate access to move through email, files, SaaS apps, or cloud workloads. For the UK SMEs, mid-market organizations, I would simply simplify it like this. The risk is not just AI hacking us. The risk is that AI makes normal attacks look more legitimate, faster, and more targeted. So that means organizations need to harden the basics: phishing resistant MFA, conditional access, endpoint protection, the full stack at the end of the day, email protection, and continuous monitoring, right?
Okay, interesting. So get the fundamentals right and work your way up from there, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Security Copilot is a significant step forward, but it requires mature security operation to get the most from it. For an SME or mid-market business without a dedicated SOC, where's a realistic starting point without or with the Microsoft security stack?
For an SME or mid-market organization without a dedicated SOC, right? We said, I would not start by saying by AI. I would start with the security foundations, right? Again and again, foundation. For many businesses, that means getting Microsoft 365 Business Premium, E5, E7 security capabilities properly configured, because most of the time what I see is they have their toolings, they have purchased their license, but when you go in deep, let's say Defender for Endpoint, yes, the AV policy is set up, might be fine, but then ASR rules, right, attack surface reduction rules, these are left there into the wild in audit mode more than 60, 90 days. No one is taking actions, no one analyzing those data, audit data, what's been blocked, what you should block, which rules should be turned to block, what to whitelist. So it's always there is a gap, right? That part of making sure that the capabilities that you already own are properly configured is very much important. Identity, MFA, conditional access policy, endpoint protection, email protection, device compliance, and secure collaboration, right? These are the things that you need to get right. A realistic starting point is secure the identity first, protect emails and collaboration then, right? Protect the endpoints, and then operationalize the response, right? Through a partner internally or through a partner. Security Copilot then becomes the accelerator on top, summarizing incidents, helping analysts investigate, translating technical signals into action, and reducing the time spent moving between tools, right? So in Microsoft Defender, Security Copilot is designed to help teams investigate and respond to incidents, hunt for threats, and use the threat intelligence in plain language. So it's a fantastic tool out there.
Brilliant. Good to know. So Defender XDR correlates signals across endpoint, identity, emails, and cloud. In a real AI-driven attack scenario, how quickly can it surface what's happening? And what does response at AI speed actually look like in real practice?
Okay. A response at AI speed. First of all, it doesn't mean that humans are removed from security. It means the platform can correlate signals identify the attack story, prioritize the incident, and in high confidence scenarios, take containment action faster than a human analyst could manually pivot across separate tools, right? Microsoft Defender XDR correlates signals across identity. Emails might be our cloud identities, on-prem identities, Defender for identity, right? Email collaboration tools, SaaS application, Defender for cloud apps, and other sources into the one single incident view. So, and then let's not forget about automatic attack disruption is designed to contain attacks in progress by identifying compromised assets and taking response actions such as containing a device, right? Device isolation, disabling a user account, revoking sessions, or interrupting lateral movement. In practice, if an AI-assisted attacker uses a phishing email, the compromised user attempts lateral movement and start accessing files, Defender XDR's value is that the activity is not treated as 5 disconnected alerts. It is correlated into one incident enriched with context, and where the confidence is high, action can be taken automatically while the security team remains in control of investigation and remediation, right? We have AIR, automatic investigation and response. We have like a predictive shield as well built in. So the attack is happening. The engine already knows where the attack is going. What's the next step, right? So it's going to close down those doors beforehand. So based on the previous data behavior monitoring as well. So yes, that's my point.
Okay, fantastic. So Entra ID protection does risk-based authentication. Can you walk us through what that looks like when an attacker is using AI to mimic legitimate user behavior? How is it able to distinguish between the real user and the AI-driven impersonation, and what can you put in place to help Entra ID understand these things better?
Yeah. The important point is that the Entra ID protection does not rely on whether an email sounds like the user or whether an attacker message style looks convincing. It looks at sign-in and identity risk signals, right? So Entra ID protection is going to analyze trillions of anonymized signals around sign-in behavior to build patterns of normal activity and identify risky sign-ins. So examples include leaked credentials, anonymous IP addresses, impossible travel, infected devices, suspicious IP activity, unfamiliar sign-in locations, all of this. So Microsoft actually contains, we have a database where we store all of this information. And also we build, this is where the technology is very important when it's come to the behavior monitoring, right? So the moment you activate the system, the engine is keeping tracking of the standard use, right? For a certain period of time. And as soon as the user start behaving little different from the usual baseline, right? Suddenly the user is starting downloading many files right in one go, or starting accessing those SharePoint sites he or she never accessed all of that, right? So that's where the risk signals goes high, and then it's going to prompt you to re-authenticate, go through the MFA or password reset. So if an attacker uses AI to mimic a user's writing style, but signals the signs from an unusual location or a suspicious IP, unfamiliar device, right? Or with evidence of credential compromise. Conditional access can require stronger authentication, force remediation, or block access. So the defense is not can we spot a fake email by grammar? It is can we verify the user, the device, the session, the location, the risk and access context every single time.
Interesting. And what you're talking about sounded a lot like kind of the risky users login element. So that's not default. That's something which you've got to enable and something which you've got to license as well. So personally, I'd say speak to us and we can help you do those things. So
absolutely, that is very important.
I'll put that little plug in there. So deepfake voice and video calls are growing. Microsoft has teams at the center of the majority of organization communications. Are there any controls that exist within that to assist currently with deepfake, and are you seeing many attacks using this vector?
So today, the strongest practical controls are layered meeting protection and identity assurance, rather than relying on people to spot deepfake. In Teams Premium, organizations can use advanced meeting protection features such as watermarks for video and shared content, end-to-end encryption, or for certain meetings. Controls over who can record, screen capture prevention, sensitivity labels, and restrictions such as preventing copy and paste from meeting chats. Watermarking is a good example. Participants can see their own email address overlaid across a shared content or video, which helps deter unauthorized screenshots and redistribution. I would be careful not to overclaim that Teams alone solves deepfakes. The practical advice is to combine meeting controls with business process controls, verified participants, approved meeting channels, out-of-band verification for payment or access request, no approval based only on a voice video call, strong identity device control. Looking ahead, the direction is clear. Organizations will need a stronger, again, identity verification, AI-aware monitoring, and governance around collaboration workflows. But for tomorrow's answer, I would keep it grounded. Controls exist today to protect sensitive meetings and reduce misuse. But deepfake fraud is also a process and governance issue, not just Teams feature issue. So you need to have business processes in place as well.
Okay, fantastic. AI-generated phishing is now pretty much indistinguishable from legitimate email in majority of cases due to AI. How would you say Defender 365 is keeping pace with this, and is there a point where traditional email security is reaching its limits?
So MDO, Defender for Office 365, is keeping pace by looking beyond grammar and simple sender reputation. AI-generated phishing is effective because it removes the old clues, right? Spelling mistakes, awkward phrasing, poor formatting, all of that. So protection has to move forward towards behavior, detonation, impersonation, link analysis, attachment analysis, so sandboxing, campaign patterns, and post-delivery response. ZAP, right? Zero auto purge. For example, with ZAP, if you have that is activated in Defender for Office 365, an email comes through, the sending infrastructure is absolutely legitimate, nothing wrong with it. The email lands, and in the body there's a link which is not detonated yet. So it will be detonated at the moment of click. So the user is getting that email, clicking it, and then it will go through the protection stack, right? So Defender for with the ZAP, when this happens, if that would happen, ZAP can come back into the user's inbox and get those emails from the inbox. So already delivered email, right? Retroactive, it can go and remove those emails. Not only from that user, it will do a complete check then again all the other users who receive the same email, and will take the similar actions on those. So safe links provides URL scanning, rewriting during mail flow, plus time of click verification. For links also in emails, Teams. So we talk about Teams protection, and on supported Office apps. But then when it's come to safe attachment, this is another policy, right? And anti-phishing policies add additional layers, and Microsoft guidance recommend verifying safe links, safe attachments, and anti-phishing policies are configured and working. Baseline again. But yes, there is a limit to traditional email security if it is treated as the only control. The future is layered: email protection, identity protection, phishing resistance, MFA, user reporting, which is very important, endpoint detection, all the conditional access policies, and the rapid response if a user does interact with a malicious message. The goal is not to assume every phishing email will be blocked. The goal is to reduce delivery, reduce the click impact, reduce the credential theft, and detect compromise quickly, very quickly.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. One thing which we touched on in the webinar, and that I hear quite frequently on MSP conferences and talking to clients, is zero trust. We always talk about it with our clients. It's something which is key to really the next generation of defense. It's widely talked about, but very inconsistently implemented. In the organizations you work with, what are the common gaps between theory and reality? And where would you say that really they need to add tooling, or what do you think they need to add to close those gaps?
Yeah, so it is something I would see every day, I would say, even though in IT these days now, zero trust, those pillars should be something very basic, right? The theory of zero trust is simple, right? Verify explicitly, use least privilege, and assume breach. The reality is that many organizations still have gaps, legacy MFA methods, unmanaged devices. No one knows that that device exists. Overprivileged admin accounts, weak guest access governance, limited visibility into SaaS applications, and security tools that are deployed but not operational. That is again and again the pattern that I see. And a good starting point would be to start with an assessment, right? Zero trust assessment, try to understand what you have in place and what's missing, those gaps, and address that as soon as possible. Start with one pillar, right? Run the zero trust assessment tool, any kind of assessment to identify where your weak points, and start addressing immediately. Yes, so I would say the biggest gap is not that organizations do not believe in zero trust. It is that controls are not consistently enforced. So that needs to be addressed.
Okay. All right. SMS-based multi-factor authentication is still widespread, despite me and the world and his wife all saying, please don't do it. In spite of what we say, how many threats or attacks would you say Microsoft see using that attack vector, and how dangerous is SMS-based authentication?
Okay. So the practical part when it's come to SM-based MFA, it's so the path is phased, right? It's not big bang. Start with the highest risk users first, admins, finance executive service desk, and anyone who can approve payments, change identity settings, or access sensitive data. Then move the wider population in waves. I recommend a 3-step approach. So assess and segment users, understand who is using the SMS, let's say, who has legacy apps, who is high risk, and who needs exceptions, because sometimes you need to accept the risk and add the exceptions as well. Introduce stronger methods and move users towards Microsoft Authenticator, number matching, pass keys, feeder security keys, Windows Hello for Business, certificate-based authentication, depending on the user scenario. Enforce the conditional access. So user authentication strengths and risk-based policies. So strong authentication is required when the risk or sensitivity is higher, right? It's dynamic protection all the time. Microsoft Entra risk-based conditional access can require MFA password change, block access based on the user and sign-in risk. For password-less scenarios, Microsoft guidance reference authentication strength, such as passwordless MFA or phishing-resistant MFA for targeted users. The key message of it: do not start by removing SMS for everyone overnight. Start with the high-risk users, communicate clearly, use registration campaigns, provide fallback support, and then progressively tighten the policy.
Okay, that's interesting. So look, AI attackers are systematically mapping supply chains for the weakest entry points. We're seeing this more and more. Does Microsoft have any tooling or programs that could help these organizations assess the security posture of their suppliers, or is that still a largely manual process?
It is a mix. Third-party risk still includes manual governance, contracts, assurance, procurement controls, and audit evidence. So, but Microsoft does provide tooling that can reduce the blind spots, especially around external exposure and attack paths, right? We have Microsoft Defender External Attack Surface Management, maps an organization's internet exposed presence, I would say, including managed and unmanaged external resources, and helps classify and prioritize exposure, vulnerabilities, and misconfigurations. Microsoft Security Exposure Management can use an external attack surface management initiative to assess the risk associated with an organization or vendor's external attack surface in the exposure management portal. So the tool is there. For supplier risk, I would position Microsoft tooling as a helping with technical visibility and exposure management, not replacing third-party governance. No. The strongest model is use procurement and supplier assurance to determine who should be trusted, and use external attack surface and exposure management to continuously validate whether the technical risk, where the technical risk may be. Yeah.
Okay, that all makes perfect sense. Look, you're in a unique position. Microsoft builds the platforms that both attackers and defenders use. Does having visibility across both sides give you a meaningful advantage, kind of helping anticipate what comes next, or have you got your own challenges around this?
Yeah, so it absolutely gives Microsoft a meaningful advantage, but it also creates a responsibility. So Microsoft advantages come from the breadth of signals across cloud, identity, endpoint, emails, collaboration, developer platforms, and consumer and enterprise services. The Microsoft Digital Defense Report states that Microsoft Global Vantage Point provides insights into cybersecurity trends across governments, enterprises, small businesses, consumers, and partners as well. So that visibility helps Microsoft detect patterns early, track threat groups, improve product protections. We get feedback loops, feedback intelligence back into Defender, Entra, Sentinel, Purview, and Security Copilot. And Microsoft Threat Intelligence tracks more than 1,500 unique threat groups, including nation state, cybercrime, influence operations, and other groups as well. So we constantly get feedback, right? A simple user reporting mail, right? We get it, we sandbox it, we analyze it, what's going on. So the challenge is that attackers also adapt quickly, right? Especially with now AI. So the Defender advantage is not just visibility, it is the ability to convert visibility into product protection, automated response, secure by design, engineering, and customer guidance.
Okay, fantastic. So if you're advising a board of directors who genuinely want to engage with cyber risk but aren't technical, what are the 3 questions they should be asking their IT team or MSP every quarter? What should they be asking us?
Well, I would be very practical. First question would be, are our identities and privilege accounts protected against phishing and token theft? This gets to MFA quality, conditional access, admin protection, identity risk, and guest accounts. That's the first. Second question would be, if a user is compromised today, how quickly would we know, right? Contain it and prove what data was accessed. So this moves the conversation from prevention to detection, response, login, and evidence. So basically, it's the complete bit. The third question would be, what are our top 5 exploitable exposures and who owns fixing them? Because this forces the prioritization based on business risks, not just a long list of vulnerabilities, right? So those questions align well with Microsoft's view of modern defense as well. Again, identity protection, XDR, SIEM, visibility, automated response, and exposure management. Microsoft Defender XDR is designed to combine signals across products into incidents, automated response, where possible, and help security teams hunt and investigate across these domains. That's the strongest point, I would say, of Defender XDR, because all these signals come to in one engine and they talk to each other, and if, all of these domains see each other, right? So we know what's going on here. So you can also predict what's going to happen. Microsoft Security Exposure Management, attack paths, help organizations understand how attackers could move from the entry point to the critical assets and prioritize remediation.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a lot of questions for us. I look forward to answering some of them. Look, for a business that's starting from a relatively low security baseline today, which maybe there are people out there with that at the moment, where would you prioritize getting tooling in place first? Would it be the endpoint, the identity, the email, or the SIEM tooling? And why?
I think it's very obvious now. I think I repeated this. So I would prioritize identity first, right? Identity first, then email and endpoint, then have SIEM SOC maturity. Identity comes first because most modern incidents involve some form of credential, token, session, privilege, or access abuse. If identity is weak, everything else becomes harder to protect, right? So Microsoft owns reporting, shows identity attacks are extremely high volume, and password-based attacks dominate daily identity attacks. So then email comes next, because phishing and business email compromise remains common entry points, and Defender for Office 365 provides controls like safe links, safe attachment. We talked about these earlier, anti-phishing policies and impersonation protection. Endpoint is equally important, because compromised devices become the launchpad for credential theft, lateral movement, and ransomware, of course. So then, once identity endpoint email controls are in place, CM solution, CM and XDR maturity become much more valuable, because you have better signals to correlate and respond to. So my simple answer: secure the front door first, identity, then protect the most common attack paths, email and endpoints, then centralize and automate response with Defender XDR Sentinel.
Okay, fantastic. Right, we're pretty much at the end of the session. Is there anything you would like to add as some final closing words for our attendees?
Yes, so I would say from Microsoft perspective, AI is changing both sides of cybersecurity. Attackers are using it to move faster and make attacks more convincing, but defenders can also use AI to integrate security signals into to detect, investigate, and respond faster. The key message for customers is: don't panic about AI. Get the security. That doesn't mean, okay, just you can relax. No, get the security fundamentals right. Get it operational. Make sure everything is configured correctly by experts with experience, and make sure that you have enough for the data, and then prepare for a world where both users and AI agents needs to be governed securely. So yes, starting point, run an assessment, try to understand if your infrastructure, what does it look like today, right? Is these zero trust pillars, identity, cloud apps, endpoints, how protected you are, what are your security controls now in place, are these deployed correctly, right? Proper assessment, and then move in a phased way. It's like a journey from your starting point, it might be identity, and then move forward until you get a proper configured, secured IT infrastructure. And monitoring, I would say 24/7 monitoring.
Absolutely. In that case, look, thank you so much, Sassy. If anybody on this webinar would like to get their free security posture report, this is not a phishing test, as a heads up. That's actually a genuine link to get through to a form to sign up for our security posture assessment. Feel free to click it. And really, thank you for attending. We've got a webinar coming up next month at around the same time, which will be on Copilot, the art of the possible, where we'll be going through all of the possible implementations, or as many as we can fit into an hour of Copilot that we've seen, where we see the highest return on investment, and where we've seen the best success. We'll have somebody from Microsoft there as well to talk through from their perspective where they're seeing the biggest wins as well. So thank you for attending, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, everyone.